The Targaryen who sits the Iron Throne is not just a king or a queen. They are a protector of the realm.
House of the Dragon Season 2 is upon us. And we got to look at this, okay? We have an 88% rating on the tomato meter. Now, I think critics only got the first 4 episodes, so it's hard to say if these reviews are going to be accurate to the actual show. Also, The Acolyte has a 91% as well, and we all know that it's probably more like a 60% when it comes to the actual audience rating. Look, let's go to The Acolyte right here. 26% audience score. So, could the same thing happen with House of the Dragon Season 2? I mean, these are critic reviews, so the audience score could be a lot different, but that wasn't really what happened with the previous season, so I'm not inclined to believe so. However, there is an article out by IndieWire right now. And oh boy, it is not boding well, as IndieWire gives House of the Dragon Season 2 a C+ rating. Oh boy, a C+ rating for probably one of the best fantasy shows we've seen in the past 10 years. I mean, it was a fan favorite, and the fan base has only grown since the first season. You know, it was a slow building show, but it ended up being a very, very satisfying watch, which had word of mouth spreading like wildfire. All right. So let's dive into this IndieWire article, guys, and let's uncover the truth, or at least attempt to, when it comes to House of the Dragon Season 2. Why does this article give it a C+ when most of the critics seem to be enjoying it? Let's take a look and see if there's anything we can glean from this article. And if you like these kind of videos, perhaps I'll make more. I may be reacting to some of the interview content from the cast in the future. Like, subscribe, and comment. Anyways, let's do this. House of the Dragons review. Season 2 brings the fire early, but struggles to generate any real heat. Okay. Interesting title. Definitely already has negative connotations. Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin's hit Game of Thrones prequel still feels like it's merely biding time between battles in the first half of a fiendish, flickering second season. So it seems like it's still exciting, if anything, right? The opening lines of House of the Dragon Season 2 stem from a character I'm not meant to name. Speaking of things that have no real bearing in the Game of Thrones universe. Duty is sacrifice, the man says. I hope I can say he's a man. What? You're already losing me with the article here. Like, what does that mean? Is this a trans actor? I'm not sure. I don't really care. I care about the story. What is it? Why are you focusing on this in the first 10 seconds of your article? I'm already beginning not to trust your C+ IndieWire. I really am. It eclipses all things, even blood. All men of honor must pay its price. Sorry to interrupt, good sir, but who are these men of honor you speak of? Are they hiding? Is HBO saving them for the next spinoff? Some are certainly dead, given the body count on which George R.R. Martin has built his brutal world, but there are scant few in House of the Dragon who fit the description. To be fair, the man narrating qualifies this, and his colleagues also appear to be living a principled existence. But having seen 9 seasons of heartless betrayals and maniacal power grabs, simply recognizing one good man among the many bad ones tends to mean one thing: he'll be dead soon. Now, that is dead accurate. If you are a good guy in the Game of Thrones universe, you've got a target on your head. You've got a bounty on your back. You will be dead soon if you are an altruistic human within the Game of Thrones world. Unless your name is Brienne of Tarth. You know, she's a good guy, a good girl, a good soldier, a good person in the Game of Thrones universe that made it out alive. Same with, I guess, Edmure Tully. And even Tyrion's a little gray, but still, he's a good man at the end of the day. But here's the thing with Game of Thrones characters, guys. They all believe that they are doing their duty. They all believe they are men of honor, yet they still falter and they still have massive flaws. That is the whole point of the conflict of Game of Thrones, is that each side of every conflict believes themselves to be doing the right thing. So perhaps the writer here on IndieWire is reading too literally into the lines spoken by this character, and that's causing a negative reaction for him. So maybe he doesn't quite have the same interpretation as many of us would when it comes to the dialogue and the themes and the characters. So I don't know. I'm already kind of shaky on this. Now, before the spoiler vultures start picking me apart, I do not know the fate of this man. He is but one among dozens of bearded white dudes talking and talking and talking throughout the first 4 episodes of House of the Dragon Season 2. And he may continue yammering after his introductory dialogue, or he may clam up forever. What's wrong with bearded white dudes talking? Aren't most of the cast on the show bearded or white or both? What? This IndieWire article is focused on the wrong things here. I want to know why it's a C+. Bearded white dudes talking a lot doesn't mean the show is bad. I hate to break it to you, but bearded white dudes talking a lot doesn't mean a show about a lot of dudes with beards that happen to be white. My mind is blown. My mind is blown, dude. Holy. Anyways, what matters is that even now, as we embark on just the second season of the first spinoff from HBO's fantasy epic, the rules of this game are all too stark. I know a guy. And I don't even mean whatever is lifted directly from Fire and Blood. Preserving the canon isn't as nagging as the sense that House of the Dragon seems ordered, where Game of Thrones felt anarchic. Well, yeah, House of the Dragon's structure of its conflict and its narrative is a lot different than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is the War of the Seven Kings. House of the Dragon is the war of a split family, a divided family. Most of the families in Game of Thrones, outside of the Baratheons, weren't really divided. It was a sort of splinter cell of different kings vying for power. This one is Rhaenyra versus Alicent, blacks versus greens. It's clear that it's going to be a lot more clear in the conflict. Like, that's not you can't use that as a criticism. It's a different type of story. So far, I'm getting weak criticisms from this article. I don't know if the C+ rating is going to quite be justified by this article, at least. So let's keep reading. The plotting, the scheming, the characters all feel similar to the tens of millions tuning in. And such familiarity is both a comfort to those yearning to revisit the Seven Kingdoms' regal, gloomy vibes, and a cage. So I guess it's just too much of the same, you know? Maybe we're just spinning our wheels. I could see that. I could see that. Now, this is a spoiler-free critique, so I do give some leeway to the author here. It's hard to really get your point across without spoiling things, but still, it's a little weak so far. A little interestingly focused on the wrong things in this article. Maybe it's just too sad of a show for him. Maybe we need more levity, but season 1 barely had any levity. So I don't know what you expected in the second season of a show that you maybe didn't already like. I don't know. I'm not sure. Now, in season 2, as war fitfully plays out and its combatants are largely separated, the season needs to fight its way out of a corner, to break precedent instead of playing into it. And it needs to get on with it already. Well, to be honest, that's kind of how I felt in season 1. The show got more and more gripping as it went on. I wasn't necessarily like super impressed with the first episode. The first few episodes. It's a story that I really needed to pay attention to and let it build. And then when I understood what it was trying to do, I appreciated it more. So I could see that. I could see that happening with season 2 as well. You know, the slow build, the slow burn kind of show that it is. Makes sense. So I'll give him that. It's not that Martin and Ryan Condal's prequel lacks for action. The premiere is a quite cunning little saga, where what foreshadows the big event is both neatly tucked away and hiding in plain sight. The kind of satisfying setup that's better once the dominoes have fallen. But despite being easy to admire, if typically upsetting to watch, the return episode still feels little. Well, I mean, fair. If it's not expansive enough for you, that's fine. The next 3 hours do as well, standing in diminutive defiance to the soaring dragons, screaming masses, and crumbling castles that fill their extended runtimes. So he's saying that there's a lot of cool looking shit. The story doesn't live up to the visuals. Interesting. I mean, it is a more quaint show in terms of its conflict. It's always been like that. So just because they toss dragons at you doesn't mean that's going to change. Two of our biggest stars see their lights dimmed by sheer inertia. Queen Rhaenyra is mourning the death of her son, last seen getting plucked out of the sky like a playfully tossed popcorn kernel by the vengeful Prince Aemond, or more precisely, by the dragon, Vhagar, who kind of went rogue. Now, whether or not the dragon was obeying his rider or just got hangry, it doesn't really matter. It's not debated. Well, that is, I will give IndieWire that. I was hoping for a big discussion in the script, in the plot with the characters about whether or not the intentions behind the murder were A, justified, and B, intentional. You know, I thought there was going to be a big argument whether Aemon was going to take responsibility for the purposeful or perhaps accidental murder of Lucerys last season. Tragic. It's tragic that they left that out. I was really hoping that would be a point of contention and drama for the show. You know, what happens when he gets back to the Red Keep, or what happens when he goes back to the Baratheons and has to explain that he killed a political enemy's son. You know, he killed a prince. What is he going to have to, how is he going to own up to that? I guess it's not debated, which that could take the show down a notch for me, but does that make a show absolutely terrible? I don't know. C+ rating is getting me nervous here. War is here. Rhaenyra's path to the Iron Throne goes through her former best friend, Alicent Hightower, the Green Queen. And she means to get there by any means. Okay, not quite any means. Condell and Martin thankfully avoid leaning too hard on the old chestnut. Hell hath no fury like a mother whose son was eaten by dragons. So she's going to have a vengeful spirit, but she's going to still remain level-headed. I mean, it makes sense. Alicent and Rhaenyra were the only ones trying to resolve the conflict, really, in the previous season, outside of Viserys himself. So yeah, I like that she's not just going to be, let's go get revenge, everybody dies. I'm sure she's going to be a very conflicted character, which is good. But in sending Rhaenyra spiraling into grief, they also keep her out of the action. Well, yeah, when you're depressed and you're a queen, you're not going to be putting on knight's armor and going out to the battlefield, you know? You're going to be sitting back on the sidelines. I would too if I had to be a queen who lost her child, two of them, the stillborn baby, and Lucerys right before a war breaks out. I'm not going to be putting on armor and going out and fighting. But maybe he means that in a different way. We can't be sure until we watch the episode. And Alicent suffers similarly, with one son, Aegon, serving as king and the other feeding royal preteens to his dragon. Alicent is left with the "what hath I wrought" arc, assigned many a scene where she questions past choices and gets snippy with the oblivious folks who've benefited from them. Well, if we know anything about this season, according to season 1, that was kind of her character. I mean, in the Green Council, she was the only one standing up to the treacherous nature of the conspiracy from the Greens. She started to feel remorseful for playing into her father's hand with the whole conflict. So, I don't know that we can really use that as a critique. That's her character. Far too much screen time that could have been reserved to let cook is instead given to the boring beefcake Sir Criston Cole. All right, this is where IndieWire has truly lost me. Sir Criston Cole was one of the pivotal characters in the first season, one of the most dynamic characters, one of the greatest, most interesting and sinister character arcs in season 1. Every time Criston Cole was on screen, there was something interesting going down. So a boring beefcake, like this guy doesn't like white dudes with beards, and he doesn't like Criston Cole. So we can already see where IndieWire's coming from here. I don't know, it's just kind of striking me the wrong way. I don't think you can call Criston Cole a boring beefcake when he's one of the most pivotal characters. The jilted lover of Rhaenyra, whose jealousy fuels an outsized loyalty to Alicent, served a fine purpose in season 1, but season 2 keeps trotting out the white knight that wasn't to lesser and lesser returns. I'm not sure what to make of that. Anyways, speaking of hotheads, season 2 also ties up its number 1 chaos king, or prince, Daemon Targaryen, in an episodes-long side quest sporting all the bells and whistles of a stall tactic. Stuck in one place? Check. Too many dream sequences? Check. Other characters complaining they don't know why he's doing what he's doing? Check. Well, that's always been Daemon's kind of thing. He does, that's like his whole character. He's always going off on the side and doing something weird that nobody understands until he does it. And even then, he's a little chaotic after the fact. Like, I don't it's hard to get a gauge on these criticisms when we can't get spoilers. So I'm not really sure what IndieWire is trying to say here. I'm just not. Whatever results of his sojourn may be necessary. It may even be so good we'll forget about this little dip in the action. So you're complaining that Daemon's not getting out on a dragon and killing everybody? He's being a little more precise with his political machinations, maybe a little more underhanded. Maybe we're going to see a different side of Daemon. Who knows? Maybe he becomes a dynamic character in this season. Wow, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? But a Daemon energy shortage plagues the first half of the season, and there's no adequate replacement in sight. Now, I agree. If they don't play Daemon's cards right in the beginning of the season, it is going to be kind of disappointing. So I could see why that would take the show down a notch for you. I can understand it. All right, I do understand it. But again, it's spoiler free, so we can't really understand yet what the writer is saying here. Prince Shithead is constantly vying for the crown of most vile, but his love of upheaval helped season 1 from getting stale. Interesting. Not that House of the Dragon doesn't try to mix things up ever so slightly. There are a handful of promising new or expanded characters, including a nice sailor named Alan. I wonder what this sailor character is going to be. And the most welcome return of Sonoya Mizuno as Missaria. But their identities feel checked off a to-do list. Well, to be honest, Missaria wasn't really a fan favorite, so I don't know what the most welcome here means. She was okay. She didn't do that much. She had like 4 scenes. So I'm not really sure what this most welcome return of Missaria is. She is kind of a really deep side character in the first season. Almost forgotten at points. So I'm not really sure what this is, you know? They're giving a simple guiding principle. He's loyal. She's resourceful. They're courageous. Well, you know, a lot of side characters tend to have a defining trait, and that will define their character actions. And the author goes on to say they follow that straight line to whatever yucky fate awaits. Yeah, that's generally how a lot of characters work. They have a defining principle and they follow it. Not every character has to be super conflicted and dynamic. You know, I can't tell until I watch the show if this is a good or bad thing, but to me, this is criticism for the criticism's sake. Again, I'm just guessing here. Some of them seem like they'll be all right. So he's guessing? He's making assumptions about the show and not reviewing what actually is going to happen. I don't know how you can be guessing and making your review based on guessing. You know, it's cool to speculate, but don't make that part of the reasoning for your, you know, judgment on the actual show. You know, it's like if Force Awakens came out and it was, you know, fun, and then The Last Jedi was coming out, I can't review The Last Jedi by my speculations of what's going to happen. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Now, Last Jedi came out and it was, you know, arguably abysmal, but it's beside the point. You can't make assumptions and then use that as ammunition in your review. You know what I mean? Stupid. The resulting downtime from so much chatty table setting does offer curious audience members time to consider what House of the Dragon really means, beyond fulfilling the dirty interpretation of its initials by showing a man with a large penile receiving rather strained oral actions. There's going to be a blowjob scene. What? Okay. Well, that doesn't affect my review. It shouldn't affect his review either. There's the obvious criticism of macho, patriarchal power structures, the recognizable parallels to modern politics, as well as a sly theory, courtesy of Vulture's Jen Chaney, that the show is really an argument against having children. Well, that's kind of funny. I mean, look, sometimes having children can make your life better or terribly worse. That's just a fact of life. New to season 2 is an upstairs, downstairs undercurrent as the dueling king and queen's subjects start to feel a little extra slighted. But it's too early to say if House of the Dragon wants to go full Andor. What it does do is provide multiple capital A acting opportunities for a few leads and lowercase b battles for audience craving the sight of soldiers smashing into one another at full speed. So he's saying the acting trumps the action, which is kind of what House of the Dragon season 1 set the table for. That's kind of how this show is gonna go. It's not an action show. It's a drama show. It's a drama show with some action. I never expected season 2 to be this action movie of a show. So if you're expecting that, you might be disappointed. You know what I mean? Anyways, the dragons are also used regularly and they look okay. What? They look okay? I don't know, man. They looked pretty great in season 1. I don't know how they could fuck that up. Excuse my language. But their first half flights aren't particularly imaginative. So it's just kind of by-the-mill dragon back battles. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of foot soldiers and dragons are going to come through and burn them, kind of like we saw in season 1. I mean, what else are you going to do with dragons, right? I'm not sure. I have to, wait and see for this critique to make sense to me. Thus far, season 2 has a hard time escaping its own trappings. The plot lurches forward. The characters focus on what we've already seen. New developments on either front do little to raise our curiosity. For those who want to tune in and be rewarded with exactly what they expect, plus an extra cringe-inducing death or two, perhaps that's enough. But House of the Dragon's duty to Game of Thrones should only go as far as its prequel status requires. This is a fictional history after all, and much like the backstabbing power players who make it up, no one is honor-bound to stick to the old playbook. There's room for innovation, even if it's just seeing what a few of the show's ideas on repression and revolution would look like. Let Alicent fight the patriarchy. Lend the battles significant consequences. Stop it with Sir Criston already. So this dude wants more focus on the patriarchy, and he hates Sir Criston. I'm pretty sure it's very clear where this author is coming from, and if that's his take, so be it. So be it. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure that deserves a C+. I'm not sure that deserves a C+. I'm just not. The collective joy of having a shared Sunday night TV experience is rare these days, and House of the Dragon Season 2 should be able to maintain our cumulative interest. Undoubtedly, the second half will have more cooking than the first. Well, that's how the first season was too. Might it even include some fun? But that's not an excuse for keeping 4 episodes on a low simmer. Until then, at least there's some comfort in knowing every noble man and ignoble king will all be dead soon. And then we can all watch the next Game of Thrones spinoff. Grade C+. So the author does make some assumptions about the rest of the show in order to give it this grade, but he's basically saying it's a slow burn, there's not enough Alicent, and there's too much Criston Cole, and the action scenes don't mean as much as the more nuanced dialogue scenes. Well, that's just what this show is from season 1. So I don't know if I can agree with his assessment and that it's worth a C+ based on his evidence. So don't be too worried, guys. Despite what IndieWire says, I think a lot of the critics, if you look at these Rotten Tomato reviews, HBO's biggest drama finds solace with a fully realized depiction of familial strife. Season 2 starts off with a difficult to watch in the best way possible episode and never slows down. So look, there's a lot of reviewers that have like the complete opposite perspective of IndieWire. So don't be too worried about House of the Dragon, guys. At the end of the day, take this review with a grain of salt. And yeah, if you like this kind of video, maybe I'll make more. I love you guys 3000. I'll see you on the next video.